This is my 1986 Jeep Comanche. I bought it from Kyle SVT after he bought it from some other dude as a parts truck for his really nice red Comanche. Both of these trucks are spec'd out pretty much the same. They're both base model 4-cylinders with pretty much no options. Where Kyle's nice one actually had no options, this completely rusted out white one had a few. Kyle put the good pieces in his truck, basically the whole dash, some interior pieces, along with a rear slider window. I figured he could take the 4-wheel drive stuff out of this white one too, but he's leaning towards keeping his red one 2-wheel drive. He'll never drive it in the winter, so that's understandable. But lastly, the power steering. His red one came from the factory without power steering. I figured he'd take the box and pump out of this one, but the swap ended up being a little too involved. And besides, not having power steering really does add to the driving experience of that thing. So what's left now is what we get to screw around with. This is the first 4-cylinder vehicle of anything I've ever owned. I've been on the lookout for an AMC 2.5 liter for a while because I'm ready to learn how they work and what differentiates them from the 4 liter. I know not very many people have 4-cylinder XJs and MJs, but hopefully as I learn things, I can help you all out with them in the future. We've got the AX4, which is a 4-speed manual. There is no overdrive gear. If you try to put it in 5th, there's just nothing there. The NP207 transfer case actually does work. It is a long bed again, as there was no short bed option for 1986, and we've got this weird custom paint job here. I don't know what the story is behind that, but it's definitely not factory. I think it may have been a company truck for some time, and maybe this was their company decal. I really have no clue, but maybe someday we'll go Ancestry.com on this thing and trace it back as far as we can. 86 was a one-off year for the Comanche. I'm going to run into a lot of one model year only things on this truck. One of the less important ones is the trim level. As you can see, it's a custom, which, yes indeed, quite fancy, but that's actually the base model trim for 86 only. It basically translates to SE. The only options this one had were custom ordered. So, whoever originally bought this truck in 1980 whatever only chose power steering, the larger gas tank, and the slider rear window, which we no longer have. It was kind of remarkable how stripped you could buy these trucks back then. No gauges, no trip odometer, not even a cigarette lighter. For the 80s? Really? Come on, It's got an ashtray at least, but we don't even have 5th gear. Another interesting little tidbit is it has 354 gears in the axles, not 410s like most of the other 4-cylinder Jeeps. And that's because it doesn't have 5th gear. So all of the 4-speed manual XJs and MJs have 354 gears, which makes them, of course, very slow. Come on! We're losing it! Come on, oh girl, come on! We're almost there! Come on! Come on! Oh, I think she's got it. Alright. Surprisingly, it will actually go 70 miles an hour. I've taken it on the interstate a few times, and it does take a really long time to get there, but it will go 70. Don't tell anyone, but I've actually got it to go 85, confirmed by the Google Maps speedometer. That was downhill, pushed to its absolute limit. I mean, it took like 30 seconds to accelerate from 84 to 85, but this old thing still got it. So the engine runs like absolute shit, and my main focus is going to be trying to figure out why. I'm not going to put any money into this thing I don't need to, because it's going to snap in half when I hit a pothole too hard. Restoration here is not the goal. Learning is. I'm very curious about the 2.5 liter, and at that, the 1986 and prior model years. I have very quickly learned that they call these the bastard years for a reason. For many reasons, in fact. In 84 and 85, the 2.5 liter was carbureted. In 1987, it was overhauled and redesigned significantly enough that more than a handful of 87 parts won't fit in 86. And 1986 parts aren't very easy to come by. It's got throttle body injection, but it's not really a Renix. It has V-belts, but it's not carbureted. It's an odd one, but it is still a Comanche. Welcome back, gentlemen, to Operation MJ, The Bastard Years.
Boys, I fixed the radio.
In this video, I'm going to basically just take a look at what I'm dealing with here. I'll replace the spark plug, swap in a real gauge cluster, and attempt to trace down the electrical short that causes my running lights to activate when I press the brake pedal. In the next video, I have to fix the terrible exhaust leak that's going to kill me someday because the manifold is cracked, and I'm pretty sure there isn't actually even a manifold gasket in it. And then from there, just kind of whatever comes up. Now that I'm back in Wisconsin, I need a winter beater car so the rust doesn't consume the XJ. And if I'm going to drive a rusted out beater car, I may as well do it in style. The first thing I did was ditch the useless dummy light cluster. If you remember in Operation Ultimate Phase 2, I picked up a set of 3 Renix-era gauge clusters of questionable functionality, and I'll put the 87 unit in mine. The dashboard was pretty disassembled already, with the 6 screws mounting the unit removed. You can pull it forward slightly to get the connectors off the back side.
This is the connector for the lights on the side. You can see you just press in on the bottom and the top of it and it comes right out. The one farther back for the gauges is the exact same. The speedometer cable is a bit of a pain in the ass though. Sometimes they'll have 2 clips where you gotta squeeze on opposite sides to release it. And sometimes they instead just have this one clip where you pull it this way to unhook it.
The old cluster has 173,000 miles and the new one sits 11,000 less. Now, if this were like a real truck that someone cared about, I would take apart the cluster and turn the dials to match the mileage on the truck. But as long as you guys don't tell anyone I'm technically committing odometer fraud on a truck nobody's ever going to buy, I don't really care enough to go through that effort. I actually tried to swap the whole speedometer gauge unit itself from the 86 cluster into the 87 cluster, but it wouldn't fit. It's too wide and it interfered with the plastic box. That's kind of a problem because the 87 speedometer has a different attachment style for the cable. So the 86 cable in my truck doesn't clip on to the 87 cluster. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about with the Bastard Year stuff.
Well, the good news is I got an 87 speedometer to work in an 86. The bad news is it's wildly inaccurate. I'm going like 20 right now. Come on. There you go.
But the cable just doesn't stay attached. Sitting there, it works, but with the vibration of driving, it's gonna fall out.
Well, boys, I may have found the cause of some of the electrical issues in this truck. What in the shit? What are you guys doing in there? Hey, you didn't buy this truck, I did. Where are you going? There's like 8 of them in there, bro. Look at that. Dude, I don't even know how to deal with this. Where's the section in the factory service manual that deals with mice? Let's see if starting it scares them off. Yeah, that engine scares me.
What I ended up doing to get the cable to stick on the gauge was I wrapped the back of the connection point with electrical tape and then just like wedged the cable onto it. It works, okay? But what doesn't work are any of the other gauges. The oil and temperature require different sensors on the engine. I'll replace those later. The voltmeter and tachometer somewhat inaccurately work, but annoyingly, the fuel gauge does not. And I don't care anymore. I'll just use common sense and the newly acquired trip odometer to keep track of fuel.
This truck may be the most stripped down base model possible, having literally no options, right? But I was digging around in the engine bay and I noticed this cord. This is like a house cord. And I've only ever seen one thing in an engine that runs off a house cord, a house plug. This thing has a block heater. Oh, the sun's kind of setting, so I'm gonna test this thing out tonight. Probably really stupid to just plug it in. It's probably gonna start on fire, destroy everything. It's the crack of dawn, noon AM. Let's see if this thing has done its job. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's like lukewarm still. And nothing's on fire. Let's see how it runs. How you guys doing? Oh, they're all gone. Maybe they froze to death. Okay. Look, I have a tachometer now. The temperature gauge isn't accurate, but I should be able to tell how badly it's running. Like, if it runs like absolute shit, it's cold. If it runs like half decent, it's warm. Oh yeah, it's warm. Yeah, look, it's not idling at literally 0. It's running half decent. So the block heater absolutely works. That's awesome. Now, if only my freaking heater vents worked. They don't do anything.
Instead of fixing the heater, I wanted to try to get the engine to run better, so I bought some spark plugs to throw at it. And then I realized I left my spark plug tool in Florida. So instead of driving it to Florida, I went over to Kyle SPT to borrow his spark plug socket, and I shit you not, the moment that truck pulled back into his driveway, the brakes went out.
How is that gonna happen? How? What are you doing, truck? So we're gonna try to replace this. There's a fitting right here. Man, I'm just, what the hell? How? The brakes fail when I get to Kyle's house. No other time. It is unfathomable to me that a 40-year-old vehicle can have mechanical issues. Well, it is nice to have somebody who speaks Rust.
Yeah.
Okay. Come on. There you go. All right. Now we just gotta measure that. Yeah, and here's where it blew out right there. Well, if you think we can get those bleeders open, I get professional
Dude,
over here.
I like literally, it was one of those where like I wasn't gonna do it. I'm like, this is not possible. But it was like one of those where it's like, we have to get the job done, so there's no option of failure. So
yeah,
you just do it.
Well, this one 6-inch section of brake line decided to rust, but the whole rest of the entire line is perfectly fine, literally untouched. What the hell? Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. You want to hit me some PB? I'm gonna go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. It's already coming out.
Perfect.
So we removed the brake line and then tackled the spark plugs just in case we'd run into anything in that project we'd have to go to the parts store for. Unfortunately, all of the spark plugs look normal, which means they aren't the problem.
Look at that. It is pink.
Sorry. Yeah. It's pink.
How do you
Someone's gonna know.
Yeah, somebody somewhere on the internet.
Someone's gonna know.
What does that mean? So that's cylinder 2?
Yes.
So yeah, cylinder 2 is pink. Somebody write that down. Number 1, huh?
Mm-hmm. They're so dry looking.
Yeah.
Nice.
Alright. Now I just want to get this thing out of here and see what the rotor's looking like. When I was taking out the dash, I dropped a screw and it went right through the floor. Heard it hit the ground.
Yeah.
That doesn't look bad, that center part.
Yeah.
What about in there? Is that this is the thing that spins, right?
You're asking the wrong guy.
I've never taken apart a distributor.
Looks good to me.
Yeah. Alright, Kyle has cleaned the contacts in the cap. He's tightening it down with his Kyle guarantee that the engine will run perfectly now.
Yes, I got a feeling it's gonna run great.
Ooh, even on the spark plugs. Oh my god,
yeah.
fancy.
A bit more neat.
Yeah. Okay, this just doesn't, I don't know, it feels different. And then 2.
Yeah.
Right? That's the order it goes, right? We'll see if it runs.
It'll run regardless. So.
Yeah. Alright, now that we've replaced the spark plugs and wires, we're not going to start it. We're going to go get some brake line. And why are there 2 brake lines going into this one T-fitting? Is that supposed to like double the braking pressure or something? What the hell? Alright, we're going to be putting Kyle's truck to work here. Got this big load of brake lines.
That's like we're maxing out the capacity.
Yeah. You think she can handle it?
I don't know. It
It's
does have helper springs, so it might.
yeah. I think this will be an excellent test of its load capacity. Well, she's holding together, Kyle.
See?
Yeah,
That's good.
we're making it.
He's a little concerned.
It was that day we learned the hard way that there are different types of flares on brake lines. The guy at AutoZone set us up with the wrong type, so we had to go to O'Reilly's and get the correct one.
All right, now we've got the correct line and our two old ones. So Kyle, do you think this thing can handle 3 times the amount of weight we initially had in here?
It's copper now,
Yeah,
so I don't know, man.
we'll have to see.
I think it might tire out the little 4-cylinder, but okay. One crank should fire.
All right, we're ready.
All right, time for the arm workout.
Whoa, we're moving. All right.
It's not bad once you're moving.
Is it going?
I think so. Oh,
Oh.
there we go.
Ah! Okay, new problem. Now that we've got our matching thread on a brake line, it's not threading into this. It's like cross threading. It'll go in like one turn and then just stop. And if you try to force it anymore, it feels like it's cross threading. And the flange is nowhere near where it needs to be in there. So how did I know this is the right thread pitch because we matched it at the store. So how does it not thread into this thing? Dude, the old line threads right into this. The new line with the same exact thread does not.
So to deal with that problem, we went to Harbor Freight to buy a flaring tool, cut the old line and got the fittings off it, cut the new line to put the old fittings on that, and then reflared it with this tool. Oh, what a stupid waste of time, but I'm glad Kyle was there to help me. Honestly, it was probably the best time the brakes could have failed, all things considered.
Yeah, if I can get it to focus. There we go. So we slid on the old threaded fittings and reflared the end of it. Alright, yeah, we'll have to put your flaring to the test and see if it holds.
Yes.
So only the front reservoir should be empty, yeah.
Yeah, it's barely empty.
Yeah, so this is the rear brakes and this is the front brakes.
So we bled the brakes and Kyle's flaring skills held to the test.
We are looking good. Need the damn flashlight anyway, okay. Alright, brakes can hold me here. Well, yeah, the spark plugs didn't change the damn thing, but that's where it idles.
0.
Yeah. Well, it stops good enough.
So thanks Kyle, go check out his channel. The truck was back to exactly the way it was at the beginning of that day.
So, because I'm having issues with the turn signals and stuff, I'm just going to cut out the trailer wires because these are notorious for, I mean, look at that. How is that not notorious for causing issues? The truck's never going to tow anything ever again. So, by taking the trailer wires out, I'm hoping to discourage my future self from any bad ideas. The wires are in terrible shape. They're almost crumbling apart and they're full of corrosion. Alright, well, you know, it's pretty crude, but so is the rest of the truck.
Cutting out the trailer wires didn't change anything, and I did pretty extensively look over the wiring harness for irregularities, but couldn't really find anything. To clarify, all the exterior lights do work, but the brake lights also activate the running lights and vice versa. So I think that's a crossed wire somewhere. As is becoming a very common theme with this thing though, I just kind of gave up on it.
I've got the front end jacked up because this gear ratio has been eating me alive. I need to know what gears it has. And when I spin the front drive shaft, you can see it spins the passenger wheel. So the cat axle has definitely been bypassed. That's good. Good on the previous owner. So every one rotation of the wheels resulted in about 3.5 rotations from the drive shaft, which means this old girl's got 355s. I knew it didn't have 410s. It was too slow. Or 354s, whatever it was for 86.
I finally got the oil pressure and temperature sensors in the mail, installed them, and those gauges also didn't work. It's like this thing doesn't want to be fixed, so the cluster swap ended up being useless. So I made the executive decision to switch back to the base cluster because the only things that worked on the other one were the tachometer and speedometer and kind of the voltmeter. Voltmeter was inaccurate. So I would rather have dummy lights than completely dead gauges. The fuel, temperature, and oil pressure, none of them worked. And at that point, like, why even have an upgraded cluster? So at least with this one, I'll have a light for the temperature, I'll have a light for the oil pressure, a light for the battery, and the fuel gauge works. No trip odometer, but, you know, I can live without that.
And with that, I mean, I haven't accomplished anything. Spark plugs didn't change anything. Brakes failed, fixed them. Couldn't find the electrical short for the brake lights, and I'm back to square one. But all this kind of made me step back and think, this truck literally isn't going to last another year or two, so literally any money I invest in it will be voided when the frame gives up. I cut down the priority list to focus on only the things I absolutely need to fix for winter beater status, which really just includes fixing the exhaust leaks. The manifold somehow doesn't have a gasket and is cracked in multiple places, so raw exhaust fumes just billow into the cab, and you have to have the windows down. Obviously, when it gets down to 0 degrees, having the windows down isn't exactly the most practical thing, so in the next episode, where things will go a little better than they have here, I'll get the manifolds off and repair them best I can. In the meantime, if you want to see this truck's origins, Kyle has a playlist where he documented his adventures of getting it to run. And if anyone out there has an 86 2.5 liter, let me know in the comments if you got any bastard year tips for me, because I am not in my A game here.